Hello, my bright stars out there. Even when it's dark, there is light. This is the Ruby Garnet Show, formerly known as the Messy Human Tarot. Please check out that disclaimer. That is your responsibility to check it out. All is timeless, general, entertainment value. It's a blend of many different things: philosophy, spirituality, real life stuff, tarot, even talking about stories, my own and other people's. This is, as best as I can make it, a safe space, hopefully. If you like anything that you hear, please, there's a donation link down below. And with that, I invite you to open your mind. Do you ever just pause and just listen to your surroundings? The moving car sounds, birds, anything, just anything. But I mean, we do live in a noisy world. Cars are always in motion, so whenever someone like myself wants to do her episodes in the real world, it's like, do I do it in my car or do I do it out and about? I'm okay with that, living in this real world for the most part. I feel like it's our dogs, though, who appreciate the world they're in a lot more than us humans do. I went by a woman who was talking about how noisy it is, and actually there's certain parts of the Minuteman that are actually way noisier than the one I'm on right now. I remember I gotta get out of here, I can't do this. It's just so uncomfortable. I can't do this. And then today it's very different. It's it doesn't feel as loud as the Minuteman, And my dog didn't notice that at all. He felt great. He was enjoying the Minuteman. And then it's oh great, my mom wants to go home. She can't handle the noise. Not anything against that lady, but it's just, I was there too. So sometimes the worlds we're in, we're very overwhelmed by it. And it makes a lot of sense because, listen to the background. What are we focusing on? The car sounds or the crickets or the bird sounds? Some of us do not have the ability to separate those sounds. And this is just a thought, but it's quite possible the reason why we struggle to separate the noise out is whether from a young age or because of our trauma, we're very responsive people, and we have stress responses to many different things. So we don't know how to ground. We struggle to come to center, to calm our senses. Oh shit. When you don't know how to do any of that, it is very much an overwhelming world. And I deeply empathize with those people. Because sometimes you have to go into a cemetery just to experience some level of quiet. Not kidding you. It's a lot quieter in the cemetery than it is on the walkway I was on. And actually, my dog likes the cemeteries. And, actually, I've had a lot of nice, pleasant walks through cemeteries. It's very soothing. You have all these trees, soft ground. You can hear the birds a little more clearly. And sometimes we have to separate ourselves from the overwhelming nature of being human in this high demand world. And the question then becomes, how do we do that? How do we separate ourselves from the noise, from the high demands in our world. How do we do that? Sometimes, yeah, you have to go into a space that is quite unusual, that takes you out of your norm and is comfortable and soothing. You know, like a cemetery. I mean, look, got a lot of dead people who are good listeners. I mean, there's Sarah P. Oh shit, man, I had a boss named Sarah P. 1804. 81 years old and 8 months. So there's 8-8. And then there's Artemis. Wow, Artemis Botel. 99 years old. Good for you. Good for you. Nice. Now my dog wants to play. He wants to play. 11-11, my bright stars. We are in alignment today. Somehow, for at least some of us, we've gotten out of our usual spaces of desperation, panic, negative thinking. We're in this space where we're in alignment. We knocked ourselves into a different place. And I want you to congratulate yourself. Sometimes we don't even feel it. Like, have you ever been in alignment? You're like, I don't feel like I'm in alignment. I remember getting so much alignment confirmations and going like, I don't feel like I'm in alignment. But this is a confirmation that you are in alignment. You did something. And it kept you in alignment. Sometimes it's just taking a deep breath for 5 minutes. Sometimes it's 5 minutes of yoga in the morning. Sometimes it's taking your dog out and being goofy and silly and putting him on a long leash so he can just chill a little more than usual, like having space between me and him so he can kind of be a dog for a little while so I can throw the ball and he can catch the ball. One moment. Literally, as I'm playing with my dog. Okay, so a little quick update. It gets over a rusty ass fence that I had to go get somehow. Got said ball, and threw the ball, and my dog dragged me for dear life. And it made me think, sometimes we just have to allow ourselves to be dragged by the universe and hope that we're going to make it and survive it. You know, and then as, you know, I was trying to get the ball from out of bounds. Sometimes we do kind of have to break the rules and sometimes hope everything is going to be okay. And sometimes we do have to go on a little adventure of what the hell, like that's not my normal. That's not my normal to come into a cemetery, place my dog on a long leash. It's not my normal to have to go chasing after said ball out of bounds after climbing or going under rusty fences. That's not my normal. It is not. You know, I was like worried about like, oh my God, there's rust on here. Am I gonna get hurt? And it's just like, no, you just gotta do it. You just gotta do it. Don't worry about that sort of thing. You have to go do it because you have to rescue your dog's ball. The consequences for having fun is sometimes being uncomfortable and just saying screw with it and still going on and have fun and treat it like a big ass old adventure. When we go out of our norm, we have such potential to come back into alignment because we're doing something we never would have thought we would do. Like get yanked by your dog across a cemetery for a ball and hope you're gonna be okay. And I was, right? So we saw this huge ass hornet of some kind. I've never seen a hornet that big. So sometimes when you step out your normal, you see things you never thought you'd see. It freaks me out because I was like, oh shit, that would hurt if it stung my dog because my dog loves bugs. He goes after them. So I had to hold him back. Of course. But yeah, that little adventure just fine. So as we headed back to the noise, I saw an interesting sign that made me realize I may have done an oopsie daisy on my part. In one spot outside the cemetery was a sign that says, "No dogs allowed." And it made me think of another thing. Sometimes when we get out of our normal space, we're sometimes concerned about rules, how things should be done. But when we get out of our normal space, no, we're not actually. We're just in the flow. We're enjoying life. We're doing things that feel good instead of worrying about what is done, how it's done, the right way, the right order. All those little things that seem important, but on the grand scheme of things are not if you actually want to go and do the things you need to do or want to do. And in order for us to live our best lives, to live in alignment, to have emotional well-being, we have to get in a flow state. We have to let go of rules. Rules don't serve us where we're going. There's been so many people that we think of that are really famous or wealthy right now, and most had to break a lot of rules to get there. I mean, I know this is a little sensitive for some people, but Elon Musk broke a lot of rules. Think about it. Our society is big into gas cars. You know, there was a lot of people who didn't want e-cars to come in and compete with the current system that we have in place now. He broke those rules. He made it so that e-cars are now part of most other brands, because in order for them to compete with Elon Musk, they had to adapt. They had no choice but to change. And that's something they didn't want to do. That's why sometimes rules get into place, is to prevent change. Because the moment something new comes into place, something that challenges our thinking, it means that we have to adapt. Who do you think are the people right now most who do not want to adapt? And again, yes, we're going to get political, but sometimes philosophy is political. Philosophy is political. And it's the people who are Trump followers. They do not want to adapt because it would require change. It would require the change of their mentality, requiring them to think outside the box. It would require them to think, maybe this man isn't actually who he says he is. Maybe these people are not who they say they are. Maybe I actually have to think for myself and actually pay attention to the facts. Not to go too deep into politics, but that's just a prime example. Another example of people who do not want change because it requires adaptation include our government. It really does. Because you look at climate change, right? That's why a lot of things have been knocked down in our government, because it would require the government to adapt to human rights. It would require them to adapt to the fact that we do need more e-cars. We do need different technology so that way we can protect our planet. It would mean thinking about nature and thinking about how do we protect nature so that we have it. It's not damaged as much. It would require adaptation, which requires change. And people who are rigid in thinking do not like change. They hate it. They really do. But change requires us to live. Rigidity kills us inside, actually. It is a slow death sometimes, and sometimes it's like it was a slow death that turned into a really fast death. In some cases, yeah. I mean, you see it too in the mental health world. A lot of these people who are in charge of these companies do not like change either, because it requires adaptation. Thinking about employee rights and a safe work environment, but also to a non-toxic work. It should be like a right for people to have a non-toxic work environment. Like, unions should start coming back, because the reason they're not coming back is because it would require both the employees and the employers to adapt to change. I'm joining a union job, and I'm telling you, it's really hard to adapt to that mentality. It's scary as fuck. Like, I hate it. But if I want to adapt, I have to adapt to a union job. Change allows us to be more versatile. Change allows us to be stronger. Change allows us to be smarter. Change allows us to accomplish great things. But in order for that to happen, you have to adapt, which means you have to think outside the box, which means you have to step out of your normal, which means you have to let go of the current rules, or at least go through the rules and see what doesn't fit anymore. It may mean that. And if we're going to be productive members of society, we have to ask ourselves, what rules am I currently in my regular day-to-day basis, and in terms of what I'm following in the government, or I don't know, anything you could think of that are no longer serving myself, my fellow citizens, myself within a government. Like, what is no longer serving us? What's holding us back from improving, from becoming stronger and better and smarter and more capable and more versatile? What's actually going to cause us to die? If we look at climate change, that will certainly, if we do not change our habits, we will die. It is just a fact. The whole planet will continue on without us, but we will not. We need more e-cars, and they need to become more affordable. You know what else we need? We need affordable housing, because when you have consumers who cannot afford your product, that means there is no economy. That's already starting to happen. There's a lot of things we have to ponder and consider. I mean, there's a lot of famous people who broke rules. What was his name? There was this really famous dude, a writer, a poet, like back in the good old days. No, they're not good old days. But there was this person who, a lot of civic disobedience had a purpose. It was a lot of people breaking rules to highlight injustices. Breaking the rules allowed them to step out of their normal and solve big problems that we were facing in those time periods. And I'm not saying do something horrible. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not saying break rules to harm people. I'm saying break rules to support our current government and our fellow citizens. I'm talking about, like, what are the things that will actually have a positive impact on our future? That's the thing I'm talking about. I know I went a little political, because a lot of what I was originally talking about had nothing to do with that. But philosophy is political. And whenever you start talking on a spiritual wavelength, in terms of, like, spiritual philosophy and political philosophy sometimes have, like, a lot of interconnections to each other. And I do believe that in order for spiritual people to actually walk the talk, we actually have to think about how politics impact us emotionally and spiritually. So I'm going to finish up. It was a lovely, lovely conversation with all yours, and I hope that was room for thinking. And remember, I'm talking about civil disobedience, not unlawful injustice in our world, because those are two different things. As a Christo-pagan, I have a rule, right? It's whatever we put out into this world, it impacts us 3 times over. So harm none. But sometimes it's minimalize harm. Try to find a way to prevent it as much as possible. But in times where that's impossible, protect yourself, protect others as best as you can. And when I worked in behavioral health, that was always running in my head. How do you minimize harm? Because unfortunately, a lot of times when you're working in mental health and behavioral health field, as an employee, you are at risk for the greatest of harms. And you have to protect other people. And so you have to think, how can I create a lasting impact on others without harming myself? It gets political, spiritual, emotional philosophy is a hot mess as it is, and you cannot sidestep it because it's hard. You actually have to step into a different place all the time. So for reals, I'm out of here. Bye.